Hello everybody, Joshua back here again with another video, and I'm here with another top 5. Yes, it's that time of the weekend, so let's get into this week's top 5 list. And of course, I'm back with another Batman Superman top 5. And of course, last time I gave you my top 5 Batman actors list. This time I'm here to give you my top 5 Superman actors list. Yes, these are the actors that defined the roles of both Clark Kent and Superman. And of course, these are my personal subjective opinion, of course. So always keep in mind, with all my top 5 lists, they're always subjective. It's my personal list, my personal thoughts. So of course, if my list differs from yours, in the comment section below, give me what your personal top 5 list is of the actors that define the role of Superman in live action. But of course, I do have a specific criteria, which of course I will not be choosing any actors who voice the character of Superman in the animated universes or in any of the animated movies or TV shows. And of course, I will not be choosing any actors who betray the character in commercials or in little tiny TV spots. And of course, I will not be choosing any actors who have betrayed the character of Clark Kent, but did not betray the character as Superman or Superboy. So of course, unfortunately, for the actors who betrayed specifically only Clark Kent or specifically Superboy, they will not be chosen for this list. And on top of that, I'm also not going to choose Brandon Routh, so unfortunately he will not be part of this list. I know a lot of people love Brandon Routh, and I personally do too. I love Brandon Routh, and I love what he's doing on the DC CW universe with Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow and Flash and all that great stuff. But unfortunately, considering the fact that his performance of Superman is, at least in my personal subjective opinion, is essentially a Christopher Reeve ripoff, I'm not going to be choosing him, unfortunately. It's because, you know, it's just a ripoff of that specific version of Superman. He didn't really put his own stamp on it. So, unfortunately, even though I personally like Brandon Routh as an actor, he will not be chosen on this list. He will be an honorable mention like everyone else, but he will not be chosen. So, but with that being said and done, let's start off with this list with number 5. Coming in number 5 has to go to George Reeves. Now, of course, he was the first ever actor to really define the role in the old serials. And I think the one fundamental that a lot of people need to keep in mind on why it's so great to love George Reeves' performance, other than how great his performance was as Superman, was the fact that he took the role of Superman at a time in Hollywood, in our world, if you will, when comic book properties were bullshit, where no one gave a shit about comic book properties, where it was just kid stuff, and every adult in Hollywood basically thought it was worthless, and he was blacklisted as an actor, and his entire career and personal life, which is why it's called the Reeves curse, if you will, was destroyed because he took on the role of Superman. He never really got out of that funk, and I always like to keep that in mind when talking or discussing George Reeves, because it's just a specific thing that you always have to keep in mind, that there was a specific time where comic book movies or TV shows were completely garbage, completely worthless, no one gave a shit about them, and the people who worked on them were basically blacklisted, and their complete career was destroyed, and his life was destroyed as a result of it, because he wanted and got to play the character of Superman. Like, it's so alien to really think about it in comparison to today's world, where a Chris Evans or a Chris Hemsworth or a Mark Ruffalo could be praised and beloved for their portrayal and performances as comic book characters. But back in the day, people hated you if you betrayed comic book characters, and they were just a joke and meant for kids. And I always have to keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, George Reeves was, at least in my personal opinion, he may not have been the exact first actor to ever put on the suit, but he was the first actor to really define what it meant to be a Superman. But with that being said and done, moving on for that and going to number 4 on this list has to go to Dean Cain in the Lois and Clark Adventures. Now, of course, a lot of people may give Dean Cain shit and may give a lot of shit towards that specific show. I mean, like, granted, it wasn't the greatest representation of Superman. Hell, the Superman costume Dean Cain even wears is kind of shitty. But at the end of the day, I always have a soft heart for that specific era and comic book lore. And also, I always liked Dean Cain's performance as Superman. I don't know why, but I've always kind of been a Dean Cain fan, and I've always liked his performance as Clark Kent and Superman. Just go back and watch those few episodes of Lois and Clark. They're just freaking awesome. They just got to the core of what it meant to be Superman in this specific point in the world, which was, of course, like the 90s. It was like that very TV era of like Friends was like the biggest thing, so like every other show had to just be like a fundamental rip off of freaking Friends, which is kind of like what Lois and Clark is. It's like the Friends of freaking the Superman universe, if you will. But at the end of the day, Dean Cain, I always liked his performance as Superman. I always liked it, and he was awesome. So with that being said and done, moving off of that and going to number 3 on this list, has to go to possibly the longest running actor to ever portray Clark Kent / Superman. It has to be Tom Welling. Tom Welling, I know going back it's kind of difficult with a lot of actors and properties on this list to really go back into a specific era where comic books were this kind of way and made this kind of way. But at the end of the day, I feel like Smallville was just the template for how to do ongoing shows based around comic book series. I mean, I feel like if it wasn't for Smallville, the CW wouldn't really be what it is with its comic book properties, which of course it's now been, pretty much beloved for being the home of DC. And Tom Welling's performance as Clark Kent is freaking awesome. I feel like Tom Welling destroyed as Clark Kent, and of course, granted, everyone can be subjectively debating about, oh, Smallville sucked, or it was amazing, or it went on too long, or it should have been shorter. All I can really say is that Tom Welling was awesome as Clark Kent, and even though I will agree that they took way too long getting him into that freaking suit, and took way too many liberties to get him to be the Superman, the Man of Steel that we all know and love, I still love the overall scope, which is Smallville, and I always liked Tom Welling's performance as Clark Kent specifically, and of course when he eventually did become Superman by the end of the show, I just loved it. It's just one of those things that you watched all along to wait for that moment, and when the second you got that moment, it was completely amazing, and that's why he's on this list. And of course he's the longest running Clark Kent / Superman, and I think he did an amazing job at bringing the life and trials and redemptions and just the overall adventures of what it meant to be Clark Kent back in Smallville and becoming the Superman of Metropolis. But at the end of the day, moving off of that, going to number 2 on this list, has to go to Henry Cavill. Now, of course, everyone's mixed on Man of Steel. It's the most mixed superhero movie of our generation, if you will. It's very polarizing in the comic book community. People love it, people hate it. In my personal opinion, I like Man of Steel. I thought it was an awesome reboot of the Superman franchise, which was basically destroyed with the prior movies, and I guess the prior TV shows, if you will, depending on, personal preference. But at the end, Henry Cavill, I think, killed it as freaking Clark Kent / Superman. I loved the Superman that Zack Snyder and Chris Nolan and everyone at Warner Brothers developed for this specific universe that we're getting with the DC cinematic side of, movies. And Henry Cavill is the tentpole character of this universe. He is the headliner, and I feel like he's just really amazing. And I just going back to Man of Steel, we can sit here all day debating, is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? Is it a terrible movie? Is it an amazing movie? Is it the greatest movie of all time? I don't really want to debate that. All I can really say is that I really enjoy Man of Steel. I really like it. I think it's an awesome movie. I can't wait to see the sequel movies that are part of that specific universe. But I just really enjoy Henry Cavill as Clark Kent Superman. A lot of people are mixed on it. I personally like him, and I think he's the best Superman for today's generation. If that makes any sense, he's the best Superman of today's generation. For this specific generation of comic book moviegoers and, overall fans, he's the Superman of that, and I like it. I personally love it. I think for a rebooted universe and a rebooted franchise, that's a pretty good Superman. I think Henry Cavill put a lot of really interesting, references to prior performances, but he gave his own at the same time, and I don't know, I just personally love it. But moving off of that, once again, skipping the honorable mentions, getting to my number 1 pick has to go to Christopher Reeve. Obviously, there is no denial, there is no defending, there is no bullshitting. It is Christopher Reeve, the definitive number 1 actor to ever portray the character Superman. It is Christopher Reeve. Once again, all the actors that came before and came after are amazing. Tom Welling, he's awesome. Henry Cavill's awesome. Dean Cain's awesome. George Reeves, Brandon Routh, so on and so forth. They're all awesome. But there's no denial, and there's no, bullshitting around. There is no treading. It is Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is the one actor who defined Superman for all generations. He defined Clark Kent for all generations. He made it a actual character that we all know and love from the comic books onto the big screen. The Richard Donner universe that was created at that specific point in time in life and in comic book history was defined by Christopher Reeve's performance. His performance destroys everything else, and he will always be, in my personal opinion, the definitive Superman. No Superman actor could really come out after, and I don't even care how many years, no matter how much I like Henry Cavill, or whoever takes on the mantle after Henry Cavill, or at the same time as Henry Cavill, can ever top the defining moments of Christopher Reeve doing those goofy little spoof-tacular freaking moments as Clark Kent, the geeky little daily reporter, and then becoming the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow Superman, the man who showed you that a man could fly. That is Superman, Christopher Reeve. But with that being said and done, this has been my top 5 Superman actors list. Of course, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of differences between other people's list of the best actors or other people's list of, worst actors or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is my top 5 list of the best actors who define the role of Clark Kent Superman. These are the best of the best. And of course, it's my personal opinion. It's subjective. So of course, in the comment section below, let me know what your personal top 5 list is of the best actors who define the role of Clark Kent Superman. Who are they? Let me know in the comment section below. But at the end of the day, Christopher Reeve, Henry Cavill, George Reeves, Dean Cain, and Tom Welling. Here's a freaking salute to them. But at the end of the day, shameless plug time. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at John12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And of course, I'll be back to end this with my top 5 Wonder Woman actors list, which is going to be very interesting considering, unlike Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman doesn't have the collage of actors as those characters. But at the end of the day, we will see what happens. But hope you guys enjoyed, and this has been Josh12.